Hey, and welcome to iHeart Intellectual Radio, Black Conservative Radio. I am your host, Alan J. Campbell, aka the Batman, here at the top of the hour. Okay, you all, we have a lot to cover in a short period of time. Okay, what I'm going to address is a few things. I'm going to get into the police shooting that has happened, another shooting in Minnesota, in the city of Minnesota. I believe the town is new. It's called New Brooklyn in Minnesota, which is roughly about 40 minutes outside of Minneapolis, where amongst other things, the George Floyd trial is going on. Now, I'm gonna get into this. Is where I need for you all to use a little bit of common sense. Let's get out of the let's take off the stupidity cap and let's put on our, as we used to say in class, our thinking cap. Okay. This is, like I said, it's only my opinion. You don't have to share it, you don't have to agree with it, but I'm a strong believer in philosophy. Okay. And I have been and I have been told that, I do a lot of philosophizing, and I'm a philosopher. And if you understand, first of all, you have to understand the word, what the word means. Okay. You have to understand what the word philosophy means. Okay. In order to really get a grip of what people are talking about, the way things are, or the way they are, and the way that we should look at them. Okay. Now, the definition, and it's very simple. There's no excuse why we cannot find these words and find the exact definition. The word philosophy means love of wisdom. The word philosophy means the word of wisdom. The unfortunate part, a lot of us Black people, we don't possess that. We don't possess that skill, that attribute, so to speak. Okay, a little bit of wisdom. Wisdom. My grandmother used to say this all the time. Wisdom. She was full of wisdom. It wouldn't be a time that I wouldn't sit there and listen to her speak, or talk about things, or talk about people, how to deal with situations, how to deal with people, and how to navigate things, how to do that. But we also have to understand that philosophy and first of all, wisdom comes from God. First and foremost, it comes from him. It's given to, and understand something, make no mistake about this. God is not going to give wisdom to everybody, because there are just some people who will, hence the term, cast not your pearls before swines. And make no mistake, God is not going to give somebody who is not going to take this wisdom and use it properly, and use it in a way. And getting to that, this is the part to where I'm referencing wisdom and common sense. Okay, a little bit of that, and that is imperative in the world that we live in right now. Okay, the first thing we're getting into, here in Chicago, we had a police shooting. Police shot and killed a 13-year-old boy who allegedly pointed a firearm at police after repeated commands of disarming himself. Okay. Now, as I said before, the picture. See, this is one of the things where the media does this. The media does this. This is not and then sometimes the family does this too. And once again, a little bit of common sense. So what they did is that they handed the media a picture of this boy who in the picture looks like he's 10 or 11 years old. But look, if you look at this picture, if you look at the picture of him, once you see the picture of him, what he looked like currently at the time of this incident, He looks every bit of 13, 14 years old. Every bit of it. But this is the thing that we're faced with. Now, there was another individual with him, and there was and the man that was the individual that was with him. This 13-year-old boy was hanging out at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night with a 21-year-old man. The story is that the incident unfolded this way. Spot shotters picked up individuals discharging a firearm. Police responded. The two individuals ran. Police gave chase, gave foot chase. After repeated commands of telling this 13-year-old to drop his weapon, the 13-year-old took up a what they call a threatening stance towards the officer. The officer once again commanded him to drop his weapon. The individual, the boy, began to turn towards the officer with weapon in hand. The officer discharged his weapon, striking the 13-year-old boy, killing him instantly. And at that particular point, a handgun was recovered at the scene. Now, the thing is the other thing is this. Now, once they process the crime scene, meaning processing means that they're collecting evidence. Once they collect the evidence, meaning now the biggest thing that they need to look for to determine, and I know enough of you've watched Blue Bloods, Chicago PD, you've watched all the Law and Order series, and if you fire a weapon, you're going to have what they call GSR, a gunshot residue. Okay, that is going to be on you. It's going to be on your hands, your skin, your clothing, anything. It's going to be on everything that was in the close proximity of this fire, of you discharging a firearm. So they did discover that the boy, last name is Toledo. He did have gunshot residue on his hands and clothing, as well as the 21-year-old, which means that they both had fired this weapon. And not only that, they found 8 shell casings at the location. Now, the part about common sense is this. Where is the mother? How do you not know? And I've said this before. How do you not know your child is not in the house? Who is he associating? Who is he hanging out with? It's a little bit of common sense. A little bit. Now, some will disagree with it. They're saying, well, he's 13. See, the biggest thing is that this is where I say where we have to start looking at things for what they really are. We're hearing 13-year-old boy. Okay. And what happens is that we kind of reflect back to what we were doing at 13 years old. At 13 or 14. Now you have to understand something. Sometimes these 13 and 14-year-olds can have some size and height. So they don't look like the typical 13-year-old. But at the same time, I'm sure that this boy had enough common sense and reason, and enough common sense in his head to realize this, to understand this was not going to end well for him. Was not going to end well. Once you engage police, and we have to fully, and I've spoken on this. Once you engage police, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to jail or you're going to get killed. There is no third. Make no mistake about that. That is going to happen. That is going to happen. Make no mistake about it. And once we start putting these things together, using a little bit of common sense and starting to see things for what they really are, we will have a better perspective on that. Okay, so and so right now the man that was with the 13-year-old in court this past Saturday was hit with a slew of charges, and I do mean a slew of charges. Okay, not only that, but this guy was also on probation. On probation. So not only that, not only did he violate probate, is he violate probation, but he's also charged with possession of a firearm by a felon, which is what upgrades to another felony. This is a part of saying where you're going to get what you got coming. Now it is what at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it's going to be what it's going to be. It really, really is. There's not a whole lot that we can say or do about this, but going back, this still falls on the upraising of what is going on, the upraising, what is happening. Why are we not supervising these children a lot better? Because we can look at this and say, okay, this is a child or a child, but it still goes back to the parent. It still goes back to the parent. It still goes back to the parent. Now, the gentleman, not gentleman, but the 21-year-old individual that was with him, his name is Reuben Roman. Reuben Roman, 21. He faces felony charges of reckless discharge of a firearm, unlawful use of a weapon by a felon, as well as child endangerment and violating probation. Now here's the other flip. They're just waiting. This is the other thing. In the commission of a felony, and during the commission of a felony, and someone is killed, you can be charged with that person's murder. Even though the police shot and killed the 13-year-old Roman, they can actually charge him with that 13-year-old's murder because his actions facilitated the police shooting. So this can go a whole different way. Now, the family has been given an opportunity to look at the video, and a spokesperson for the family said they're not going to make a comment until they look at the video. They're not until they look at the video and then render comment. See, the other part, and this is the part sometimes to where their common sense is kicking in. A little bit of reality is starting to settle in. The mother is thinking, had I known where he was at this particular time, this particular conversation would not be happening. You have to, and as the family should, they have to reserve their comment until they see what's what. And then on top of that, we've said this before. It's a lot of people know that their children are gangbangers, gun runners, dope drug dealers, all of this. But you want to turn a blind eye to this situation. Common sense. If you know that you didn't give your child this money, your child comes in there and he's got new gear. Your child comes in there and he's got new gear, fresh clothes, shoes, certain electronic equipment, and you didn't give him this money to purchase it. He's got to be doing something. He's got to be doing something. Now, moving from that story, we're gonna go to I'm gonna go to the next story of the police shooting. Let me pause there but I'm gonna go into several comments of what is going on with the George Floyd trial. Now, looking at the trial and listening to a lot, this dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, this dude is going. Derek Chauvin is going to prison. Make no mistake about that. I mean, I'm sure his lawyers have told him, you need to prepare. You need to prepare yourself because you are going to the booty house. You're going to go to the boom boom room first, then you're going to the booty house. And in that order, because the preponderance of evidence that is piled against him is overwhelming. The doctor that performed the autopsy on George Floyd said even though he stated that yes, George Floyd had fentanyl and methamphetamines in his system, but it was of low dosage, meaning that this was not enough to kill him. It was not enough to stop respiratory or send him into cardiac arrest. It was not enough of that. The doctor did state in open court what did cause George Floyd's death was the compression that was being applied to George Floyd's, not only his neck, but to his body. Meaning that it's okay to get a better understanding, people. Think of it this way. Think of it as you're laying on your side and someone is pressing down on you. What happens is that the body cannot expand or contract. It can't expand, contract. That was what was happening with George Floyd. His lungs could not expand. And the doctor indicated that it was as if George Floyd had one of his lungs removed and he was struggling to breathe. EMT said the same thing. His own brothers in blue condemned this act. Condemned this. A specialist in expert in excessive use of excessive force clearly state that no department in the country uses this tactic of placing your knee on someone's neck. No department. And not only that, but this was beyond excessive. Excessive. George Floyd's mother got up on the stand and she just completely broke down. His brother was on the stand today and completely broke down. And the part about listening to, as George Floyd's brother was saying, it was really startling to hear his brother's last words, and the fact that he hears brother gasping and saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. These police officers actually interfered with EMTs, and this is said in open court. They actually interfered with EMTs trying to render aid and resuscitate George Floyd. Interfered. Now, one of the policies, one of the rules in law enforcement is to preserve life. Also, once the subject is down, you are obligated to render aid. You are obligated to render aid. None of these officers did. They actually interfered with EMTs trying to do their job. And I've seen this, I've seen this before where police officers will actually interfere with EMTs trying to render aid of an individual that they may have gotten into a scuffle or have shot. Okay, but there's just still no excuse. The job is done. Let these people do what they need to do. Do what they need to do. As we move forward in this trial, because the trial is now into its second week, and the prosecution is close to wrapping up for their closing arguments. Now, what happens now is that now the defense will get to present their side, but it's actually, it's futile, but under the Constitution. Now, here's the thing: under the Constitution, Derek Chauvin is afforded due process, something he didn't give George Floyd. Due process. So we have to go through this process. Go through the process. I'm gonna pause on the Chauvin trial. I'm gonna go to the recent situation of the shooting of the man in Minnesota. Now, a lot of this, watching clips of the video. See, this goes once again to levels of stupidity, being scared, stupidity, common sense, and a high levels of intensity. Okay, now this took place. This took place a few days ago in a small, just outside of Minneapolis, called Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Okay, it was a man that was shot. His name was Dante Wright. Dante Wright. Now, now apparently the purpose of the stop, was that there was an issue with the vehicle. That's the purpose of the stop. So what happens is, apparently, um, uh, he gets the individual. They stop the vehicle, and Mr. Wright apparently attempts to get out of his vehicle. And this is the biggest thing, people. We have to fully understand how to interact with police officers, and it's, and we're at a state, we're in an environment where we have to learn how to do this. We have to. We have to start teaching our young people how to interact with police. We have to tell them. We have to teach them. We have to educate them. Because we have to understand that some of these police officers, and let's be totally honest, that some of these police officers out here they're afraid. They are actually scared. Okay. Who wouldn't be? Because understand something, when you have people who are not afraid to shoot police, you have people who are afraid, who are not scared of going to jail or going back to jail. These are people who don't, and when you have a person who has nothing to lose, that makes them the most dangerous person on the planet. They are capable of anything. Capable of anything. Capable. So as this unfolded, they walked up to the car. They were doing their process, and then come to find out, Dante Wright had an outstanding warrant. Okay, now here's the thing. You kind of see this unfolding instantly, because once Dante Wright has been informed. I'm sorry, he was informed that he had an outstanding warrant and was asked to exit the vehicle. Okay, here's the problem. I won't say problem, but here's the deal. See, this is where we make the left turn instead of just complying. You have a warrant. Why fight with police? Oh, why? You know why? Because you feel you have the right to. You feel that this is not right. Sort that out when you get to the jail, and deal with it when you get in front of the judge. Okay. This guy would be alive if he just had complied. It's a warrant. It's not a warrant. This individual not complying basically created an environment where it led to his death. He created an environment. But before, I don't want to get too, just letting you know that the phone lines are open. Give me a call here if you got a comment, or you have something to say about these subjects that I'm talking about. Give me a call here at studio at 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953 here on Black Conservative Radio. Now, the simple part, as I said, or the easy thing would have been to just comply. I tell my sons, I tell my daughters, if there's an issue, don't act a fool. Hands at 10 and 2. If you're stopped at night, pull into some place where it's fairly lit, like a gas station. Turn on all the lights inside your vehicle. Let your windows down so they have a clear view of what's inside the vehicle. Sometimes we have to realize that not everybody is well diverse in de-escalation tactics. We have to learn how to de-escalate things. Learn how to do that. Teaching our children how to. It's no different at anything that we do. here's the part where what I said at the top of the show, where a little bit of wisdom comes in, a little bit of wisdom. We're passing this down. What do you do? Bottom line, if I'm getting stopped, I'm turning, if I, I'm driving, I'm turning on all the lights in my vehicle, letting the windows down, hands at 10 and 2, waiting till that officer comes up to the vehicle for the interaction. Simple. Now I have no idea if this cop is going to be cool or he's going to be a straight asshole. I have no idea. But if he's going to be an asshole, that does not give me the right. That doesn't give me the green light to be an asshole with him, because all that's doing that, he's already pumped up. He's already amped because he doesn't know what he's dealing with. The most dangerous thing for a cop on the street is a traffic stop and a traffic stop or a domestic call. You have little to no information on what the situation is. So your adrenaline's going. The driver, his adrenaline's going. If Dante Wright had have just simply complied, sir, you have an outstanding warrant. I'm gonna need you to exit your vehicle. Once that happened, they tried to cuff him up. A struggle ensued. Why? See, this is me and my philosophy saying, how hard would it have been to just comply? Because understand something, this can go bad in so many ways. And it went very bad. He had a choice. Get cuffed up, go to court and sort it out. But now they're trying to scrape money. Now they're trying to scrape money together to put him in a box and stick him in the ground. It's just, how hard can that be? How hard can that be? Now, this is the other part. The other part, which is also bad, on how bad. This is why I stress the fact that this situation that went bad so quickly because of one person's irrational act. Now, the officers who was there in the attempt of restraining him, of putting the cuffs on the female officer. Now, here's the thing. Now people, I know this is just gonna blow your mind. Now, when you are dealing with an individual and most police departments have tasers, what your training, this is your training. Your taser should be opposite of your gun, opposite of your weapon. Okay, so if you're right-handed, your weapon is over here, your taser is going to be over here, and vice versa. If this is your gun hand, your taser is going to be here, or even to a point where some officers have their tasers on their attached to their vest. So there's really no mistake, because here your gun is low and your taser is high, or where it may be. Now, here's the kicker, or as we say, the gag, is that the officer in the attempt of subduing this individual, and she yelled out. Now, when you get ready to tase somebody, you have to let everybody know who's close to the individual that you're about to tase. You let them know, I'm going to tase you, and then you yell, taser, taser, taser. So you're letting everybody know. What happened is, apparently she grabbed her weapon and discharged it, shot Dante Wright. At this particular point, Dante Wright staggered back to his car, drove off, and then crashed. The officer's response was, "Oh my gosh, holy shit, I shot him." Her words, "Holy shit, I shot him." Accidental. Now, this is what the department will call an accidental discharge. Now, if you're wondering how does that equate to accidental, it's considered by rule of enforcement that you did not intend to discharge your weapon. You did not intend. It's no different if an individual was just taking their weapon out of their holster and it discharges. It's an accidental discharge. There's no intent. There was no in now, huh? We have to go on. We have to go on the belief. We have to go. We have to go on the belief. Now this is what the department is saying. So naturally, we have all of this footage on. We have all of this footage from the officer's body cam. Now we have to go on the belief until we get all of the evidence, until we get all of the facts and all of the evidence. But me being how I am and looking at things for what it really is, how hard would it been for Dante Wright to have complied with the officer's command on getting out of the car, cuffing up? You have an outstanding warrant. We're taking you in. Now, we haven't got into what the warrant is for. It could have just been a simple failure to appear in court, traffic, something. Huh? Okay. A minor marijuana charge. Simple, which would have it would have been a simple misdemeanor, and a fine. But he lost his life because he did not want to comply. That makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. None. But it doesn't help the fact that this is a second shooting inside within a year. Inside a year, involving Minnesota. Now, the bad part about this, okay, we're not in the minds of this. We're not in the mind of this police officer. We're not. We can't speak for her. We can't speculate on what her intent was. We can't assume. We can only go on the belief, but we cannot assume. And the other thing is that we cannot be judgmental of a situation until we get all of the facts. That is the part of where understanding where philosophy comes in. Philosophy is also getting an understanding on how things work, why they work the way that they do. Getting an understanding first. Getting an understanding. I'm gonna just read briefly on the statement that the police department's released. The footage shows 3 officers around a stopped car, which authority says was pulled over because it had expired tags. Here we go. We talk about niggas riding dirty. Expired tags. Now, that's one. Expired tags. Second, when the officer attempted to handcuff Wright, a second officer tells Wright he's being arrested on a warrant. That's when the struggle begins, followed by the shooting. The car then travels several blocks before striking another vehicle. A female passenger also in the vehicle sustained non-life-threatening injuries during the crash. Authorities said that the passenger was the girlfriend. Hennepin County Attorney Mike Friedman said any decisions on charges against the officer will be made by the Washington County Attorney under the agreement adopted last year by several prosecutors aimed at avoiding conflict of interest. Friedman had been frequently criticized for his charging decisions involving deadly use of force by police. These officers have not been named because it is due to an ongoing investigation. Court records show Wright was being sought after failing to appear in court on charges that he fled from officers and possessed a gun without a permit during an encounter with Minneapolis police in June. In that case, the statement of probable cause said police got a call about a man waving guns later identified as Wright. Wright's mother, Katie Wright, said her son called and said he was pulled over. Now, here's the other part. Here's the other part too. See, this is why we have to dig a little deeper to get to ascertain, to get to the truth. One of the other things that was mentioned on what the reason for the stop also was that he in certain states you cannot have anything dangling from your mirror. Illinois actually is one of those states to where you cannot have anything dangling from your mirror. It is called obstruction of view. You cannot have anything hanging. You can't have an air freshener. During this current time, you can't have a mask, air freshener, parking pass, a parking permit, a parking pass that extends into the view of the driver. Anything that will be in your peripheral vision or that is in your view. And Illinois is one of those states. Yes, you will get pulled over. I've seen people with their sunglasses, just various things. And that was one of the other reasons, along with the expired tags. One of the other things that was mentioned is that he had an air freshener hanging from his rear view mirror, which would constitute obstructed view. So there are several things. Now we can look at that. We can look at that as something being very petty, but at the same time, it's a safety issue. You don't want to be the guy who's on the receiving end of a car crash because somebody had a face mask hanging from their mirror and it obstructed their view of you trying to cross the street or coming into the path of another car. So it's kind of 6 in one hand and half a dozen in the other, so to speak. It really is. But going back to the top, the very beginning, just a little bit of common sense. My grandmother would always say, and as a child, I didn't know I had no idea what it meant, but she would say it all the time. She would say, bought sense is better than borrowed. And as I get, and as I got older, I got to understanding it. And she was right. She was absolutely right. And I say this because when we are around someone, with someone, and they are and they're trying to teach you something, they're trying to show you something, they're trying to educate you in a way that is most conducive, so it can help you make better decisions, not so much being a better person, but making better choices, better informed decisions on dealing with things, how to look at things, and getting a better understanding. Sometimes we can be judgmental on a lot of things and a lot of people because or I should say people can be judgmental of others because they don't have the full understanding on how things work, or they don't possess the necessary, they don't have the and I hate I hate to say this, but I have to, but it's the truth. There's some people who don't possess who lack intelligence. I won't say possess, but lack intelligence on certain things, on how this works, how this should have unfolded. Now, what now the mother, Dante Wright's mother, Katie, I will say this. She, to a certain degree, it appears that she's trying to process this. Yes, unfortunately, her son is dead. Okay, he's dead. There's no, there's no, there's no rejoicing, hallelujah, all of that. There's none of that. Right now, they got to find money to put this dude in the ground because he made a choice. He made a choice. Now, if he's out there driving, if he's out there riding dirty, and some of you all know and some of you all know who you are too. You out there riding dirty. Don't get mad because Johnny Law pulls you over. You know you bogus. If you out there with blown tags, no driver's license, no insurance, and you get pulled over, why you mad? You made the choice. You made the decision to get behind the wheel. It's like a drunk driver. It's like an alcoholic. It's like a person who's drinking, gets behind the wheel, drunk, and goes out and crashes and kills somebody. He made a choice to do what he did. A choice. He did not exercise common sense. He did not exercise good judgment. Good judgment. Now, moving over to the police side, I can only surmise that this officer, whoever they are, feels bad. But see what happens. All of this unfolds in a matter of seconds. He's wrestling with police, resisting. Operative word. He's resisting. Okay, if you had a warrant, you got a warrant, you got a warrant, cuff up, get your black ass in the car and go on downtown. Let them process you. Call your mom and tell her that you locked up. Come get the car and deal with it. This is the part that we don't want, that we sometimes don't want to admit either. We don't want to get into that. This is one of those things. Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Who do I have and where you calling from?
This is Jay from Georgia.
Hey, what's happening, man? What's happening? All right, just go right in.
Yeah, let's get into it. So I will disagree with you on some of the premise of tonight, which is with this young man, Deontay Wright, or whatever the case is. So there was a lieutenant in Windsor, Virginia.
Oh wait, okay, hold your point. I haven't got to that one yet. I have not got to that yet. Remember now, I got a lot more to get to. So save that one. I haven't got to that. I haven't forgot about him.
Okay. Well, let's just stay with Deontay Wright. So the thing that falls apart with that narrative of, well, if he had just complied. Now I'm with you to a point, but I'm done with that. That no longer is even an effective response or rebuttal. It's not effective, nor is it valid. It's almost to a point, it's insulting, because I am not condoning the young man's actions, because I'm going to be very clear. I am going to be very clear. Had I been an officer, he probably would have got the same outcome. Now, here's the difference in what the point that I'm trying to make. I'm saying that as a novice who has not been thoroughly trained, who has not been put through rigorous levels of certification and scenarios that teach me how to de-escalate a situation. Okay? So that's the major difference between a novice, someone who, has a desire to be in that particular profession, and someone who has been duly trained and ultimately certified to work within the office and all of the requirements necessary to make them certified and trustworthy as a professional to operate in that office. See, so that's where all this falls short. So the narrative is she thought she pulled her taser, and as she began to fire, or after she fired, is when it became a realization or apparent, oh crap, that was actually a live round, okay? BS. Because again, you have gone through extensive training. And when I say extensive, let's, for the sake of argument, because everybody's going to say, well, they only went through 13 hours. Stop. There's what they call classroom hours or training hours, and then there's certification hours. There are two different banks of hours. So just because, and I'm giving broad examples before someone comes back and says, oh, well, the hours were off. So let's just clear that up. The point is, there are training room hours, and then there's certification hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. And when you're using
different.
Right. And I will say this, with the taser, you have there's a level of there's a certification. Now, that's why I said at the beginning, I never said she made an honest mistake or even condoned that. What I did say is she grabbed her weapon and discharged it. The police spokesperson classified it as a accidental discharge.
But
that's what. Oh, no. I'm just. I get that.
Even with that.
I know.
With that. Sure. Let's play the game of semantics and word games. At the end of the day, you are responsible for where your weapons are.
Oh, no. I agree. Now, if you recall, I said this the same thing, and I even gave a slight demonstration, is that your taser is supposed to be opposite of your gun hand. Some instances where some officers will have it attached to their vest, so there is no discrepancy.
Correct.
Now, however,
it becomes a deliberate action in how you draw which way.
Right. Now, to go into what you were saying, I absolutely know, because even I would question that, because having worked with police officers, I question that. Like, how do you? Okay, first of all, you are responsible, and as you said, yes, you are responsible for what you would consider your duty belt and your equipment on your duty belt and where it is placed. You are responsible for that. That was one of the things. How that all of that came into play and change on tasers and firearms, so you wouldn't get the two mixed up, was the shooting death of Oscar Grant in San Francisco, when the officer thought he had grabbed his taser, but he had grabbed his firearm. And that's what actually changed the policy on tasers and the use of where your weapons, how you set your weapons up, or your what you call your equipment on your duty belt. Now, once more information comes out, because trust me, they're going to grill her on how is your equipment set up on your duty belt? Where was your taser? Where was your taser? Where is your firearm? That is the key thing on what's going to happen. The worst case is that if they do charge her, the likelihood would probably be man one, possibly man two. Possibly, but I'm looking at a manslaughter charge, because we have to go on the assumption there was no intent we have to go on the intent that she honestly thought that she was reaching for her taser and grabbed her weapon. So that's how it looks. But that's what I'm looking for. And not to mention the fact that Minnesota is a hot button right now, because Minnesota is on lockdown. Nothing is moving. Absolutely nothing is moving. Now, going into this other thing, and I don't want to go into the thing that you were about to go into. There was an incident and where Virginia, Windsor, Virginia, which is 20 miles outside of Virginia, outside of Richmond. This gentleman, he's a second lieutenant, black. He's a lieutenant, black Latino, second lieutenant in the Army. In the Army. Now, he's not that far from Dover. It's basically, it's like maybe hour and a half, maybe 2 hours south of that. So he's pulled over by two white cops. Their story,
actually it's a Hispanic and a white cop.
Hispanic and a white, and their story is that they could not read, they could not see his license plate. Now we've all heard this bullshit story. I can't see your plate, but then all of a sudden, when you get close to the vehicle, you can see it. All of a sudden, I've had that happen. The very first, when I started driving, the very first time that I got pulled over, it was because they couldn't see my plate. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So, people, if you haven't heard this story, this lieutenant was pulled over, but he kept driving because he understood here's the thing, and it goes to what I said before. We have to understand the environment. And I've often said, people, and I will be the first one to tell you, if you do not feel comfortable being pulled over by a police officer or police, you keep driving until you get to a well-lit area. Because here's the thing, law enforcement actually tells you to do that. Drive to a well-lit area. So the lieutenant, who he drove to a gas station, pulled over where it's well lit. These two cops get out, they give him the business, and not only that, the Hispanic cop puts his gun in his face and told him, if you don't get out the car, you are going to ride the lightning. Then pepper sprays him. See, the lieutenant did everything right in matters of de-escalation. He turned everything that I said at the beginning of the show. He did exactly he did the right thing. He turned on all the lights in his vehicle, and he put his hands he put his hands out the window. Am I not correct, Georgia? Hello?
Say that again.
I said, and he pretty much did everything the right way.
Correct. Everything was the textbook way of how to interact with police in a non-aggressive fashion.
Exactly.
In today's climate, did everything to the textbook, letter. The other part of this is, which again goes back to where I was going to go real briefly, is the fact that this is a second lieutenant. So this man technically has a significant amount of military rank, and the officers intimidated him and threatened him by saying they could put up charges that could impede his military record.
Yes.
His military progress.
Yes, they did. Yes, they said yes.
See, and so to me, this says that, and I've said this before, there has to be monumental statutory changes in how law enforcement is allowed to operate from the ground level.
Yes, and when you say that
happens,
yes,
where there is a platform and a statue of, listen, this is not acceptable, then this will continue, especially in the little hickbilly towns of Windsor, Virginia, in the small hillbilly towns of Macon, Georgia, and Winder, Alabama, or whatever the case is.
Right.
There has to be a national statute that sets the precedent of how these stops are supposed to be handled. People, please understand that your tax money has paid for these body cams. With the use of these body cams, there's a whole nother infrastructure system of how these body cams are to be uploaded at the end of the shift, which should dictate some level of community standard and conduct.
Well, I think I think that here's the thing. A civilian oversight. Okay, if when you're looking at the video, it should not fall into law enforcement hands. It should fall into a civilian oversight to look at this and say, hey, what is this all about? Or what is this? Explain this to me. When we're talking about reform from the ground up. It has to, first of all, living. Okay, in a perfect world, we could say let's let's look inside the mind of these potential individuals who want to be police officers. Let's crack open their head and see what's going on, actually going on. Are they suitable in a perfect world, or put them through some type of rigorous mind training? In a perfect world, yes, but we don't live in that type of world. What has to be done, if we're talking about from the ground up, that has to start with the mentality of the individual, and then it translates into the academies, into the the proving grounds, the training. All of this does that, and this is where we
also has to handshake with the prosecution. Police operate many times in this fashion because their objective is to get suspects that the prosecution will then follow up and prosecute.
Yes.
See, so there has to be a complete handshake. That's why I say this thing has to be restructured. The statutes have to be restructured. Officers work off of the statute that they know that the prosecutors would like to see in the paperwork.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's police and prosecutors. It's a dirty marriage. That's really what it is. It's a dirty marriage. That's really what it boils down to. Because when we're talking about a union of two entities, and this is kind of, and I'm a sidebar for a moment with that. When you're referencing a union, a marriage between two people, there has to be a level of compromise. There has to be a level of understanding. There has to be certain concessions have to be made. And that's the same way that it has to be with the police department and the prosecutor's office. There has to be, here's the thing. You can't say that the police is always right, even when you know that you have minimum probable cause to move forward. It's incumbent of the prosecutor. It's like the prosecution is the husband, the police, then the police is the wife. She brings her husband an issue or problem. His job is to sort that out and see if this shit is worth dealing with or letting it go. But first and foremost, if you're going to have that type of marriage union, somebody has to show some level of wisdom and common sense. Wisdom and common sense. Because understand something, when we're referencing wisdom, everybody's not going to agree with that. Wisdom is, and if you we think about this, if you look in your Bible, wisdom is considered is likened to a woman. You have to entreat it very kindly. You have certain things you have to understand about it. You have to think, and this is part of that process between the police, between law enforcement and prosecution. It's a marriage. And unfortunately, it's to a point to where it's an unholy marriage, because both of you are doing things doing things that are not part of the marriage. You are agreeing, you are co-signing, you are part of you're part of the problem. Part of the problem. This gentleman, this second lieutenant, did everything right in this traffic stop. Everything right. Not to mention, now so that you know that this second he has filed a massive lawsuit. One of the two officers has been fired. The one that pepper sprayed the officer and told him if he doesn't get out, he's going to, quote, ride the lightning, meaning that he was going to execute this man inside his truck. See, that goes into the mentality of this individual. All this cop saw, this Hispanic cop saw he saw a nigga in a uniform in this nice truck.
Well, let me just put a bullet.
That's go ahead.
Because we're so quick to think that they're our friends. We're so quick to think that they're our other brothers of color. No, they're not. They'll crawfish you quicker than anyone else. The Hispanic and Asian will crawfish you and put you on a splint like a shrimp quicker than anybody else. You better wake up.
You better believe it.
Thinking everybody's your friend because they keep telling you, well, you're all up in here together. You're minorities. You're not a minority. It's every man for himself.
You better.
I didn't see Mr. Hispanic say one thing about this is my brother of color. I don't want to defame him or do something harmful to him.
Right.
He didn't give a good damn.
Right. And
As a matter of fact, he initiated most of the aggressive behavior.
Right. And the white officer only and see, this is the part to where, once again, a little bit of common sense kicks in to where, hey, wait a minute. Okay, he's complying. Is that necessary? But by him being less in years on the force, he's siding with this guy. But see, once again, as we said, there has to be a point to where it starts in the academy to where understand something. We understand that there's the brothers in blue, but there's also a sign. There's also this is what is said on the force amongst us as black people. Point blank period. 2 black for the uniform and 2 blue for the brothers. So where are we supposed to fit in? Now, you have the white officer who was doing his job and backing up the other cop, even though he could have changed, he could have said he could have altered that and say, listen, or step in between. Now, here's the other thing: what people don't see and hear. There are videos out there, and you have to find them. They're out there. There are officers that will get on other officers, that will intervene when they see another officer doing something wrong. But see, we don't see those. Those are the things that are not posted. Those are the things that are not broadcast. Those are the things. It's there's a quote by a gentleman by the name of Edmund Burke, and it goes like this, or it reads this way: the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Yep.
The only way for evil to triumph, and people, I want you to, and this is the part to where the wisdom comes in, and this is what, and see, these are the things that draw me to not so much as draw me, but continue to hone, to sharpen my skills, sharpen my sword with knowledge and wisdom, learning, understanding, getting a better perspective, a better understanding on certain things. I'm not perfect. None of us are. But if we exercise some form of wisdom, some form of knowledge, stop being the goats. And we're not talking about the greatest of all times. Stop being goats. Stop being sheep. It's time for some of us to become lions and take and protect. It's time for that. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. And I'm going to repeat that statement, people. I'm going to repeat that. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And this is in the prosecution. This is in the prosecutor's office. This is in law enforcement. This is even in our own community. Our own community. Own. But go ahead, Georgia.
Well, I mean, again, to go to the earlier statement, we've got to demand better.
Yes.
In the meantime, while we're stumbling over this, all of the money that was supposed to be utilized to make significant change and create the movement necessary went to buy houses and luxury condos for the elite folks of BLM. See, so when we keep wondering why these situations keep happening, it's because until we understand the game of politics, we will continue to be the grease under this grinding wheel. Voting does not matter.
No.
Does not matter. Voting is basically a sampling of saying that this is the population of people that side with a particular agenda that we're going to push through.
Exactly.
That's exactly what that is. And if you do not have an economic base and a significant amount of representation in the political process and in the judicial process, literally, you are just spokes in the wheel that are intended to be broken off so that they can be replaced.
That is true. That is very, very true. Very
Jewish
true.
community, Asian community. We never heard of such an influx of a type of attention and or preference that has been completely waterfall onto the Asian community. And I say a waterfall because there's no stopping the amount of attention and legislation that they are pushing through at lightning speed for their protection. And this is just after one incident. We've been fighting and dealing with this whole police shooting matter for over, 70, 100 years. Not one bit of legislation has been passed. Still don't see it. You don't understand until you have economic power, till you have an advocate that you have signed, sealed, and delivered economically that represents your interests. You literally are just the poster child for who to pick on next. And that's what we keep doing. Meanwhile, I can guarantee you, here's a really good analogy. With the 6 people who were murdered in Atlanta for the Asian situation that appeared to be Asian hatred, targeted hatred. Gotcha. Okay. Not to diminish that. How many times did the Asian community come together and have to march? I might have missed it. I blinked. So maybe I missed one of their marches that happened in Atlanta.
They pulled together relatively quickly.
No, but my point is, not one march was necessary.
No, not one.
But within hours, and if not days, legislation was drawn from heaven.
It sure
and
was.
Instantaneously put on national TV that this cannot and will not be tolerated. And the United States government will and has thoroughly condemned it and will do everything it can to ensure that these citizens are embraced. How many marches? I'm still waiting for an answer or a number of how many marches the Asian community had to do
right after
to make that happen.
Not one. Right after it happened, most likely a week after it happened, they had legislation on, and they had legislation laid out on what they wanted to do.
Correct.
Legislation.
What does that tell you?
Once again,
the Asian community is smaller than the African American community
as a whole.
And you've been here roughly about the same amount of time, give or take. But within 1 week, these jokers surpassed you in getting significant and beneficial legislation to the floor to ensure that they were represented and that they were made of value.
Not only represented, but they actually slipped in to deem it a hate crime. A national.
And you still getting lynched and shot in the face.
They actually fought to take lynching. Wait, they fought. Paul Rand actually fought to take the word lynching out of legislation because, in his words, that doesn't still happen. What the hell? Where you been?
So this is America. So until we deal with that, you can miss me with all this other foolishness because you have no power. We are somebody lied to us and we're too stupid to figure it out. Voting is not power.
No.
And you did not. I wish we would quit telling our children this lie because it's a lie. You did not die for your right to vote. You didn't die. You were murdered. You were systematically set up by terrorist organizations within the United States, co-signed by law enforcement, i.e. CIA, FBI, who handshaked and literally gave addresses and names of people who were trying to register to vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's called terrorism. It's called intimidation.
Intimidation. That's exactly right.
That's the same thing as if a witness, their information is leaked by the prosecution to the offender's people so that they can intimidate. Isn't that a federal crime?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
See, you don't know the game. You still, and I've said this before, you running around here thinking that you big because you learned how to play checkers and everybody else around you is playing chess. That's it.
Very true.
I'll talk with y'all.
All right. It was exactly right. So with that being said, y'all, hey, the lights are flashing in the distance and the helicopter has just landed. So that means that that's all the time we have here on iHeart Intellectual Radio, Black Conservative Radio. I'm your host, Alan J. Campbell, aka The Dark Knight. A shout out to my sponsor, Captain Hooked, 85th and Cottage Grove, 103rd and King Drive, and 15922 South Kedzie in Markham, Illinois. And as I said before, people, please take some of this with you. Don't just absorb, let it sink in. As my people would say, use your head for more than a hat rack. And in closing, not my monkey, not my circus. See y'all next week.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.